welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis, and next to me, of course, is my beautiful co-host, Laraib, as we are super excited to break down all of the Week 11. Is that right? Are we already in Week 11 of the NFL season?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's flown by us. Over halfway through. A lot of good games. Still the buys coming through for a couple teams. The Bucks, Dolphins, and Jaguars, and Seahawks all on bye this week. But this is gonna be a big week for a lot of teams. As the playoff picture becomes a little bit more solidified, especially in the NFC. The Commanders with that big win on Monday Night Football, Lewis,
Yes,
taking
sir.
down the undefeated Eagles, sitting at 5-5, Lewis. They're right in the thick of things. A couple teams, the Niners at 5-4, the Seahawks at 6-4, and so that seventh spot is wide open in the NFC. And anything else to say before we get into some of these games, Lewis?
Yeah, just quickly touching on that Monday night game. I think with the Eagles loss, I mean, you can say as an Eagles fan or Eagles player, like, oh, we needed a loss to we didn't want to have that pressure on us, which, yeah, whatever. I mean, no one's going to go undefeated and win a Super Bowl for a long time. And you have to be a really good team. And the Eagles are good, but they're not like that level of like that tier above everyone else, like the 2007 Patriots were, to where it's like, okay, it makes sense you're undefeated. But for the Eagles now, I think it takes the pressure off of them, but it also shows the rest of the NFC this team can be beaten. So if you're a team like, the Buccaneers, who kind of have a slow start, and, the Vikings, who lost to the Eagles, this is open. Go for it. Do whatever you need to do, and make sure, and potentially for the Vikings, they're tied with the Eagles. Now, Eagles have the head-to-head over them, but they could go in and grab the 1 seed. So let's go ahead and get into some of these games, Laura, because there's a lot on the line now. A lot of things still open, and technically no one is mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So yes, Texans fans, there's still a chance. But Laura, let's get into it. Starting with down in the Bayou, we have the Los Angeles Rams at 3-6 going to New Orleans to face the Saints, who are 3-7. The Saints are favored by 4.5 in this game. This is a game as a Saints fan, 3 years ago. Game of the week, super exciting, fun, Fox game of the week. Now I don't even think I will be watching this game on Sunday. It'll be so hard to watch. I mean, I think Matt Stafford, he was a full participant in practice, so he should be playing this week, I believe, but no Cooper Kupp. Their offense is nothing without him. They can't run the ball. They really can't pass anyone else. This offensive line has been abysmal all year. But the Saints, on the other hand, have been the team of misfortune, dysfunction, you name the bad adjective, the Saints have been a part of it. And I think against this Rams defense, they're not going to have much success. The Rams defense is really good. One of the few things this Rams team has been good at this season has been stopping the run. And if they can stop this rushing attack from the Saints, you're going to force Andy Dalton to throw it into tight windows to guys who are really not that prepared. I think the Rams can win this game, and I think this is going to be my upset, Larob.
Well, Lewis, we've talked about this all year long, but the Rams are nothing without Cooper Kupp. We thought they'd bring in guys like Allen Robinson and he would break out, but he just hasn't been able to get any separation, or Matt Stafford hasn't been looking his way. And so I really like your Saints in this matchup, Lewis. At home, NFC Championship rematch from a couple years ago. The fans are definitely going to be fired up for this one, rocking in the dome. And so I like the Saints at home against the Rams team, which, they have a good defense. I'll give you that. But, with Jarvis Landry coming back and Chris Olave, who's been, his name has been mentioned in the Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he leads all rookie receivers in receptions and yards. Woo! And so I like the Saints at home. It's going to be a low scoring game. A defense from both sides is what's really going to be the key. But I like the Saints 23-20 at home.
I think this is a case of me in which I've been so cold on my picks recently that I'm trying to reverse jinx the Saints into some fortune that they've been thirsting for in these past few weeks. So I'm going with the Rams in this game. I just think that, this is the game that they need. The matchups favor them. Without Cooper Kupp, they can still get a little bit going, and I'm more confident now that Matt Stafford is playing quarterback. But yeah, it's definitely a game. I won't be rooting for my upset pick, but it'll be nice if it happens. So I'm going with the Rams in this one. I'm going to say 30. No, that's way too high scoring. I'm going to say 18 to Saints 13. Just ugly, ugly game. Going to be on the last page of everyone's red zone on Sunday, Larob.
All right, Lewis. Well, we'll see how that one works out for your Saints. But let's move on to another game at 12 o'clock. We have the Chicago Bears at 3-7, going to Atlanta to play the Falcons, who are 4-6. Now, really interesting, Lewis. The line is -3 for the Falcons. I'm leaning towards the Bears in this one. They lost a really tough game last week against the Lions. Justin Fields was a really bad pick six, but we've seen him. He's really been heating up with the rushing attack. This Bears team leads the league in rushing and has been all through Justin Fields and David Montgomery. And, Justin Fields has been getting some Michael Vick comparisons, the past couple of weeks, him and Lamar Jackson, just two premier rushers of the football at the quarterback position. And so I like the Bears in this one a lot, Lewis.
I gotta disagree with you, Laraib. I think that, you lose one of your best running backs in Khalil Herbert. Yes, he's not the RB1, but I think he's been much more impressive for this Bears rushing attack. So you're going to lean a lot on Montgomery, who's been, fumble prone, injury prone in his career, and Justin Fields. And this is a Falcons team. And their last outing, yeah, they looked awful against Carolina, but you get that 10-day break coming off Thursday Night Football at home, where they've been really good this year against this Bears team where, yes, Justin Fields has been playing amazing, but this Bears defense has been bad, allowing up to 36 points per game in this 3-game losing stretch. So it's almost like, wow, Justin Fields, he's playing so amazing, but now the defense turns into, well, a defense where you trade away two of your best players. This is what you're going to get, Chicago. So I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I look for the Falcons just at home. They're going to get that advantage with the rushing attack. So I'm going to pick the Falcons in this one, Laraib. I'm going to go Falcons 31 to Bears 27. I think this is going to be a really fun game that ultimately just the Falcons fans, all those amazing Atlanta fans, can will them into a win.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. This is going to be a high-scoring game. You'll have red zone on, and miraculously, Marcus Mariota 50-yard touchdown run, Justin Fields 40-yard touchdown run. It's going to be one of those games. I expect a lot of big plays from both of these offenses, but I like the Bears coming out on top, 27-26 on the road, and Justin Fields keeps on continuing to perform at a high level. All right, Lewis, let's move on.
No, yeah, you got it.
Okay, so let's move on to another game. This is going to be a snowy game up there in Orchard Park. We have the Cleveland Browns going to Buffalo to play the Bills. Buffalo -8, Lewis. And now we've seen this Bills team, sliding a little bit, lost 2 games in a row. What do you think they can do in this one to, beat this Browns team?
I just think you need to play disciplined football. We've been talking about this Bills team. They can move the ball at will. They can be that juggernaut. But in the past 3 games, it's been these red zone turnovers, these just lack of sense plays in which they shoot themselves in the foot and keep the other teams back in the game. And these past 3 games, they've been up by 2 or more scores in all of them, but they let their opponents come back and make it a game. You cannot let this Browns team do that. And what this Browns team is going to want to do is pound the ball. It's snowy weather, so they're really going to want to get that run game going. You need to be, as an offense, sharp, efficient, and disciplined to where you don't give this team anything. Because if this Browns team goes down by 2 scores early, they do not have the passing attack to come back into this game, especially in Buffalo, where, these fans need a win after the debacle last week. So I think the Bills come out and make a statement in this one. I like the Bills.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think this is just going to be one of those signature Josh Allen games where he just puts on a show, snowy weather. So I don't expect both or either of these teams to have a heavy passing attack. And I think Josh Allen and his legs get it done against the Cleveland Browns at home. Nick Chubb, obviously, and Kareem Hunt will keep this game close. Actually, not really. No, I don't think they'll be able to keep it close. The Browns defense has just been playing awful. And I think they're exposed again this week against a Josh Allen who's, trying to will himself back into that MVP conversation. And so I like the Bills 30-20.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I'm going to get the Bills in this one. I think it's just one of those Buffalo, style bulldozer games to get them back on track, get their confidence going. I'm going to say 34 to Browns 14. It's going to be just a crazy snow game in which the Bills take advantage, Laraib. But let's move on now to our next 12 o'clock game. We have the Philadelphia Eagles, fresh off their first loss of the season at 8-1, traveling to Indianapolis to play the Colts, who got they're on a winning streak now with Jeff Saturday as their new head coach, Laraib. And, I saw the post game. A lot of people excited. He was revving up the team, gave him Monday off. And I think this is the game where Jeff Saturday realizes that it's not so easy being a head coach when you're not going up against Josh McDaniels. You're going up against the coach of the year and Nick Sirianni. And I think the Eagles get back on track. The Colts just they're not gonna be able to run the ball like they did against the Raiders last week, who have an awful run defense. And if you can't run the ball, this is a game where the Eagles pass rushers are really gonna be able to tee off against Matt Ryan, force the turnovers, which they have been the best team in the NFL at forcing turnovers this season, and they're gonna win this game emphatically, Laraib.
Well, Lewis, I'm going to give you a little pushback. We saw on Monday Night Football that the Commanders were actually able to pound the ball a little bit on the Eagles. But the big thing for me in that game was, no big rookie defensive tackle Jordan Davis in that one. And so, if he's not playing in this game, I expect a lot of big runs from Jonathan Taylor in this one. He started off the season slow, but last week he had a big run. And with no Jordan Davis out there, this Eagles front seven can be exposed a little bit on the ground, like they got exposed by Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson from last week. And so I think this game is going to be pretty close for the Eagles. But I still like them. But I still like them in this one.
Coward.
My upset is coming up a little bit later, so this is not going to be the one for me. But I like the Eagles. They had some really bad turnovers in that game, Lewis. The AJ Brown one, it goes through his hands and the corner is able to just get it. And then on the fumble from Quez Watkins, that was just a fluke play where he's running and the ball just gets knocked out from behind. And so this is for any team, right? You have these bad turnovers at costly times. It's going to cost you the game. And the Eagles finally came back down to earth. But on this one, on the road, like you mentioned, I think Jeff Saturday gets a wake up call on this one. And I like the Eagles 27-23.
And I'll tell you what, I really like Jeff Saturday. I like how devoted he is to the Colts. And I think, he wants to do whatever it takes to win. They have some really good assistant coaches there, John Fox and can't think of the other guy. But yeah, they're really good assistant coaches there to help him along his journey. So I'm rooting for the guy, especially with all the criticism he's received because of this job. But I just think this is a game where the Eagles, they get back, they get right on the road. It's not that far of a road trip for them. They're going to win this game. I'm going to say 31 to Colts 23.
All right, Lewis. Let's move on to another game. This is going to be a big one, Lewis. The New York Jets are playing the New England Patriots. New England -3. Now, both of these teams are coming off a bye. And, the last time that these two teams matched up, it was about the defense. But what we were looking at was just a terrible play out of both the quarterbacks, right? Zach Wilson had 3 really bad interceptions. Mac Jones didn't look too solid either. And so, this is going to be a really interesting game, but I think the Patriots defense is what's really going to be the X factor. Zach Wilson, just not that we haven't seen that, those flashes out of him or any sort of success out of him. And so I like the Patriots in this one, Lewis. And one, quick note, there's this guy on Twitter, Lewis, or actually, excuse me, there's this child on Twitter. All right. And for every single Jets game this year, before the season started, he did a coin toss on whether the team would win or lose. And so far through 8 games, he's predicted every single one right. And for this one, he has the Jets loss. And so I'm riding with my boy on Twitter, and I like the Patriots at home.
Wow, it's like playing a game of roulette and you just pick odd every time, but who cares? My thing about this game, there's been a lot of criticism going towards Mac Jones recently, but what did we say during the offseason? This team did nothing to support him. They got rid of Josh McDaniels. They got rid of a lot of the offensive skill positions, and his offensive coordinator is Matt Patricia, combination with some other guys, Joe Judge. So we were not expecting him to play well. And now that he's not, everyone's surprised, like, oh, he's this awful quarterback now. I just want to pump the brakes. I don't think Mac Jones is going to be a great quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But we saw last year, he can be a serviceable quarterback. And in games like these, they just came off their bye week. And if there's a team I trust coming off a bye to tweak those little things on offense, try to get things going, get some trick plays to help Mac Jones in this game, it is the Patriots and it is Bill Belichick. So I think this is a game in which the Patriots have beaten the Jets 13 consecutive times. And yes, the Jets have had a great story this year, but Zach Wilson, just his inability to, play consistent football is going to, burn him again in New England. That's just not a place you want to play. So yeah, give me the Patriots in this one. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, but I like New England. Give me 21 New England to 20 the Jets. Nick Folk sends them home.
Yeah, and I also like a field goal game, Lewis, a little bit lower scoring than you, but 20-17, the Patriots get it done at home. But Lewis, let's move on to another game that we have another New York team at home. We have the Detroit Lions going to New York to play the Giants. Now the Giants sitting at 7-2. Actually, the Giants are -3 in this one, but the Giants sitting at 7-2, Lewis. Like you mentioned, the Eagles they get the loss last week, and now the Giant team like the Giants and the Vikings are looking at them, and we can get that number 1 seed. And so now you're at home against a Lions team, which 2 wins in a row, good for them. But now you're facing the stout Giants defense. And, the big thing is going to be the legs of Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones on offense. They're just going to be running all over this Lions team, Lewis, and I really like them at home.
Yeah, I just think this is a bad matchup for the Lions in this game because the Giants' run defense and their front seven is playing very well this year. So I don't think the Lions are going to be able to get a lot going. I don't think they're going to convert a lot of third downs in this game. Meanwhile, the Giants, they're going to be able to run all over this Lions team. I think the time of possession is going to be completely askew. I just think, this is a Giants team. This is going to be a Giants type of win from what we've seen this season. This won't tell me anything about the team unless they lose, which will just confirm more about what I believe. But that's just me being a hater. I do like the Giants in this game. Purely just all the matchups really favor the Giants. If there's any matchup that could potentially turn this game is, Amon-Ra St. Brown against some of those Giants secondary players who I am not completely sold on. He can take over this game, but I don't think they're going to be in a position. I don't think they're going to be on the field enough for him to do that. So I do like the Giants in this matchup, Laraib.
Yeah, for sure, Lewis. But I'll also be taking the Giants with you. Giants 26-23. I think it's going to be low score, or excuse me, a close game. Dan Campbell, with this hot streak, we don't know what sort of Lions team we can see this week. Like you mentioned, they have playmakers across the board with Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And so this is going to be a tight one. But like you mentioned, I think the Giants, they're just able to milk out the clock from as soon as they get the ball. So Giants at home, 26-23.
Yep, and I'm going to go with the New York Giants. I'm going to say it's a bit higher scoring. I'm going to say Giants 31 to no, that's a little too high scoring for Daniel Jones. I'm going to go Giants 27 to Lions 23. A lot of field goals in this game, a lot of good rushing plays, but ultimately the Giants get it done in the end. But Laraib, moving on over to our next noon game, we have the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Carolina Panthers. Ravens favored by a whopping 13 points this year. That's a lot of points for a Ravens team that has been kind of up and down this season. But, given this Panthers team and what they've been through this season, it makes sense, Laraib. Big thing for me in this game is we've seen this kind of rejuvenation of a rushing attack from this Panthers team. After losing Christian McCaffrey, you have guys like Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard who've been very good for you in terms of running the ball. And that allows PJ Walker to use the play action pass and get some of his guys involved. But I just think that this defense really is not going to be able to do enough to Lamar. And they get Mark Andrews back this week, likely played a really good game in their last game, coming off a bye at home. I just think this is a perfect Ravens game for them to flex their muscles and move to 7-3. Not much to say in this one. So I'm going to go ahead and give my score. I'm going to say Ravens win this one big, 34 to Panthers 13.
Well, Lewis, like you mentioned, PJ Walker, but he is not going to be playing in this game. It's going to be Baker Mayfield out there for the Carolina Panthers. And so I'm going to say that they lose by even more than what you mentioned. So I really like the Ravens. The defense has been up and down all season, but they've really started to come into shape last couple of weeks, Lewis. And so like you said, Ravens coming off a bye. I really like them at home. We know how Lamar Jackson is against those NFC teams. So I like the Ravens 33-14.
You know what? I'm going to amend my pick. I'm going to give them one more touchdown for the Panthers because Baker Mayfield loves those garbage time stats. It's going to be 34-13, but he'll get one more touchdown to DJ Moore to help my fantasy team out. It'll be 34-20. Ravens still win this one pretty emphatically, Laraib. But let's move on to our next noon game of the week. Probably the game we've been looking forward to for this whole year. We've been marking it on our calendars, circling it. Yes, it is the Washington Commanders traveling to Houston to face the Texans. Washington favored by 3 on the road, Laraib. I've been very impressed recently with this Commanders team, even without their best player in Carson Wentz, and this run they've been going on, just running the ball. They've been really good in red zone situations, and we saw on Monday Night Football converting a lot of key, third downs. They were really good in third down because they set themselves up for really good positions on third and shorts, third and threes, third and twos, and they're able to convert. But I think this is a game just against an inferior opponent. Commanders starting to feel themselves out. Chase Young might come back this week, but even if he doesn't, we saw how devastating that defensive line is with Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. They just have so many guys to throw in the pass rush that I think they get to Davis Mills. And it'll be a close game just because the Texans love doing this, but I do think the Commanders win it in the end.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It will be a close game. The Texans have lost, 4 or 5 games this year just by one score. Just haven't been able to put everything together all at the end. And like you mentioned, this Commanders team has been really frisky. We've seen this out of a lot of teams this year, Lewis. The rushing attack is a back for a lot of teams. We saw the past couple of years that, moving to a passing league or moving to a passing league. And now you have teams like this, who are able to ground and pound the ball. Some teams just don't even expect it. And so I like the Commanders. It's going to be, this game is less than 10 minutes from my house, Lewis. So maybe I might go and see what's going on over there for my Houston Texans. Tickets less than $20. So maybe,
Woo!
but
$17 I'm looking at. Come on now.
So, always fun to go over there to the NRG Stadium, but there's going to be a bigger game for the Commanders, because, moving to 6-5, they have an opportunity to sneak in to that 7th seed.
Absolutely.
And so, of course, I love them. It's going to be a short week for them. They played on Monday night, but I think they can get it done. I like the Commanders 24-20.
That game does have all the makings of a trap game, even though we don't think much of the Commanders. It does feel very, traveling on the road, short week after a big win against a dilapidated Texans team. If I really wanted to go with my heart right now, I would switch it to the Texans, but I simply don't believe. So, yeah, I'm going Commanders. I'm going to go Commanders 23 to Texans 16. I just think they really milk this clock and get that running game going. So that's who I'm going with in that matchup. But now let's move on to the 3 o'clock slate. We have the Las Vegas Raiders traveling to the Broncos, and what we thought may have been a really good game before the season, but both these AFC West teams have disappointed greatly so far. Denver is favored by 2.5, Laraib. I want to hear what your feelings are on this game, just with 2 disappointing franchises. Who needs this win more? I mean, you could say the Raiders, the Broncos. I don't think this win really puts either of them in the AFC playoff picture, but they're still playing for something. Which team is playing for more at this point of the season, Laraib?
Playing for more? I think it has to be the Denver Broncos, Lewis. We can agree this is 2 of the biggest disappointments in the NFL this season for sure. But I think the Broncos, they have the number 1 scoring defense in the league, Lewis. And then on the opposite side, number 32nd scoring offense. So literally the worst and the best scoring on both sides, which is awful to see. Because let me throw this stat out for you, Lewis. If they scored 18 points, I'm sure you've seen this on Twitter. If they scored 18 points in regulation for all their games, they would be 18-1 right now. Which I'm sure makes Broncos fans. 8-1 right now. So I know it just makes Broncos fans sick to their stomach that they can't, score 20 points in one game, and be 8-1 right now, and be, that Super Bowl contender or, almost in the contender like we expected them to be.
Well, Laraib, let me ask you real quick, because you've been a Seahawks fan, pretty much all your life, and you've watched Russell Wilson throughout his entire career, basically. Do you think maybe it's just a disconnect? Do you think Russell Wilson still has some of what he's shown in Seattle in him? Or do you think at this point in his career, the Broncos are just stuck with a bad quarterback? Because there is some things, you lose Javonte Williams. This offensive line has been really banged up. This coaching staff has not been great. So I think there's still a chance that if you get the right people together, maybe get like a Sean Payton in the building or just a capable mind to get behind Russell Wilson, he can get back to what he formerly was. But the 32nd ranked offense is a far cry from what the Broncos were expecting this season. So what do you think the Broncos can do?
Well, Russell Wilson, he definitely still has the talent, Lewis. We saw the game this past weekend against the Titans. He still has that ability to take one step in the pocket and launch the ball 60 yards down the field. He had a 60-yard touchdown this past week to KJ Hamler. And so, the one thing I will say, he just hasn't been the same guy. Even the past couple of years in Seattle, his presence in the pocket, being able to move around and, his rushing ability, I'm not sure if he just doesn't want to do it anymore or, some ailments, he's getting old, but the rushing attack was a really big element to his game early on, especially in our Super Bowl runs when he was a rookie. But I still believe, as much as I hate him or, all the stuff that went on, with him leaving. He still has the talent, Lewis, and I think they can get it done. I think the bigger issue here is Nathaniel Hackett. Hopefully he's gone after this game, or because this is just a really bad look for him. You bring somebody in from the Packers, you think he's going to be this amazing offensive genius, and now you have the 32nd ranked scoring offense. And so we'll see what this team could do next season. Lewis, like you mentioned, is bringing in somebody who has some sort of offensive mind, because they have the playmakers. Lewis, Cortland Sutton is an amazing receiver.
Yeah.
Jerry Jeudy was a first-round pick. And so you talk about all the guys they have. I really think they have something special there, but it just takes somebody to put it all together. And Nat Hackett is just not him. And so,
and I think also losing Javonte in the beginning of the season was a huge blow for this team, because a lot of this, the short game, which has been Russell Wilson's weakness throughout his career, even in Seattle. It's a lot of screens, a lot of going through the running back, and a guy like Javonte was a huge asset in that department. But Melvin Gordon is nothing like that. And they try to bring in a guy like Latavius Murray, who had 5 catches last week. He's not that type of running back either. So I think maybe you need to just make Russell Wilson like a system quarterback and get a smart coach in there who can work a system, and Russ just play into it. Because right now, Russell Wilson's playing a lot like Russell Westbrook, where it's your style. You just can't do your style anymore of the moon balls, escaping the pocket, and making electric things happen. You don't have the talent around you for that, and you are not that talented anymore to be doing that. So you need to play within a system, and I think he's smart enough to play within a system and can still play good football. But right now, that's not happening. And for this game, quick little aside right there, but we needed to talk about that. Quick little aside, but going back to the game in this particular matchup, I just think this Raiders team is completely lost. Derek Carr crying at the podium. This team is just so discombobulated. What Raiders team are we going to see? They call it the Death Star, but did they even watch Star Wars? Never mind. But going to Denver, I just think this is a game in the Mile High. Broncos defense gets them this. It's going to be an ugly game, but Broncos win in the end. I'm going to say Broncos 16 to Raiders 14.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Like you mentioned, Derek Carr's at the podium, trying his hardest not to, just cry everywhere. That's really heartbreaking to see a team like that who had such high expectations, and now the leader of your team is trying to hold it all together at the podium. And so the Broncos, I think their defense is definitely the reason why they win this game. Pat Surtain, quarterbacks don't even look his way anymore, and so I like the Broncos 17 to 16 at home. And Mile High.
All right, let's move on now to the actual, in my opinion, best game of the week. We were talking about this in our last episode, if you could hear us through all the technical difficulties. But we have the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Minnesota. Dallas is favored on the road by 1.5 points, Laraib. The biggest thing, this is a huge game for the NFC playoffs, all the standings, because, if the Cowboys lose, they can kiss that division champ goodbye. And if they lose, they're only 1 game ahead of the Commanders, who are right behind them in that division. Meanwhile, if Minnesota loses this game, it's going to be hard to catch up to the Eagles, who are already beat you in the head-to-head, and now will be a game up on you if they can beat the Colts like we expect them to this Sunday, Laraib. So scratch that. Just look at the game, all X's and O's right now. What matchups are you looking at to give which team the edge, in your opinion?
Well, Lewis, it's going to be this Vikings passing attack versus the Cowboys secondary. Now, last week, we saw Christian Watson, expose them for 3 touchdowns last week. Now, imagine what Justin Jefferson can do to that defense. Now, I will give credit to the Cowboys. They actually have they have the 4th best, passing defense, but they have the 4th worst rushing defense. And so we'll see how all that can stack up. With the addition of TJ Hawkinson, Lewis, like you mentioned, it just really opens up this passing attack for everybody. And it really opens up, the rushing lanes. We saw Dalvin Cook had a big rush last week to really, bring the Vikings back into that game. And so it's just going to be this Vikings passing attack, a little bit of rushing in there too. And we'll see what this Cowboys defense is made of, because last week they did not look like the guys who they were earlier in the season.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest matchup for me in this game, Laraib, is this Minnesota rushing attack the Minnesota rushing defense against this Cowboys rushing attack. in which I think Cowboys have the edge in this one. Christian Dalvin Tomlinson, he's not going to play in this game. And I just think, Ezekiel Elliott, he's questionable to play. And you might be saying, well, Tony Pollard, he's been much more impressive. But what we saw in that Packers game for the Cowboys is they needed that workhorse just to get you that 4 yards, those 5 yards. Tony Pollard, yes, he can hit those home runs out of the park, but Ezekiel Elliott will give you those consistent, just chunk plays to put you in better positions in certain downs. And I think this is a Vikings team that's susceptible to the run. And if the Cowboys want to get anything going in this game, it's to run the ball. And this might be a game when you're up early. Kirk Cousins, this is a primetime game, CBS game of the week. Say what you will about it. The lights will be bright in this one. So this Cowboys defense, what are they the best at? Getting to the quarterback, causing chaos, causing havoc, and they're very, very aggressive. So this is a game when they can either get burnt by a Justin Jefferson or, a KJ Osborne down the field, or they can make Kirk Cousins pay. And I'm going to take the gamble that after they know that bad loss in which you give up that lead, you're up 14 points going into the fourth quarter, give up that lead to the Packers. This is a game where they're focused, they're hungry, and I like that matchup in particular to decide the Cowboys' victory on the road, Laraib.
Well, my boy Perk Duggins, as long as the sun is out, the guns are out for my boy Kirk.
Hey, daylight savings is over. Hey, we're getting dark early. It's going to be dark by halftime, all right? Especially in Minnesota. That's in the north.
Well, we had Von Miller in his face last week. He had Ed Oliver in his face last week, and he stood tall in there and delivered some strikes to Justin Jefferson. And so if he can handle that, it's going to be a little bit tougher task with Micah Parsons because, he's better than he's on that same level. But if he can stand in there with the Bills, I think he can do it against this Cowboys defense. Like you mentioned, a lot of hit or miss. And I think they're going to be missing a lot against Justin Jefferson this week. And so I like the Vikings.
I will say, Laraib, this is a much better secondary than they were going up against last week because that Bills secondary was ravaged. No starters were playing in that game for the Bills. Meanwhile, you play this Cowboys secondary, Trevon Diggs. You have all these, safeties, Anthony Brown, guys who are aggressive. They play smart ball. They won't let up a 4th and 18 miracle catch to Justin Jefferson. They're batting that ball down, and they're getting in victory formation. And sorry to cut you off.
They won't let it up to Justin Jefferson, but they will give up 3 touchdowns to rookie Christian Watson. So
they were sleeping. They were sleeping on.
We'll see how this one pans out. 2 differing opinions on this one. I like the Vikings at 27-24 at home.
I like the Cowboys 31-28 on the road. Kirk Cousins with the game-ending interception to put those purple Peter Eaters in the dust. And yes, this will definitely be one of the best games of the week. We're super excited to watch it and then talk about it the next week, Laraib. But let's move on to our final 3:00 game. We have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Pittsburgh. Cincinnati -4 on the road, coming off a bye, Laraib. But we saw how this game was in week 1, in which the Steelers won in overtime. It was a great game. And the biggest part of that game was TJ Watt was a monster in that game. He came back last week. He played well, and he's going to have another week. So what are you looking for in this game? Can the Steelers perform the sweep?
Well, Lewis, it's going to be this Bengals offense without Jamar Chase facing up against the Steelers defense, like you mentioned. TJ Watt came back last week. No Minkah Fitzpatrick for the last week, but he is good to go in this game, Lewis. And so I really like the Steelers at home. I will say the Steelers versus the Bengals. The Steelers have won 5 out of the last 6 home games. And with TJ Watt out there just wreaking havoc on the Bengals offensive line, which we know is, hot or cold, game to game, I really, really like the Steelers at home.
Yeah, I got to disagree with you, Laraib. I think the biggest matchup in this game, yes, that is a big matchup, and that will play a part. But I trust this Bengals offense against the Steelers defense a lot more than I trust the Steelers offense against this Bengals defense, which has been quietly one of the best units in the entire league. And I had to watch, unfortunately, Kenny Pickett last weekend. He is not that guy. I mean, the Saints defense let up so many big plays. The Bengals will not. They are not able to run the ball. This team has very little outside weapons. George Pickens, he is the truth, but they just, Kenny Pickett, I just think this pass rush will get to him. This offensive line is not very good. And do I trust Joe Burrow or Kenny Pickett more in the end? I trust Joe Burrow to win this game. And I think coming off a bye with the rest, offensive line gelling, they're not going to get 7 sacks like they did week 1. I think 2 sacks on Joe Burrow, that's it, and the Bengals win this game. It's gonna be a low scoring, close game. I'll give you that one, Laraib. But I just think the Pittsburgh cannot get enough offense to really match the Bengals in the end. So I'm gonna go Bengals 18 to Pittsburgh 12.
Yeah, with no Jamar Chase, we saw they really had to lean on Joe Mixon in their last game. And, my fantasy team loved that one. But I
Loved
don't
it.
think they'll be able to recreate some of that success in this one, Lewis. And, I'm going to put on my conspiracy hat one more time this year. Every team following a game after playing Carolina has lost their next
Oh my
game, Lewis,
goodness.
even after a bye. So there's 2 teams this week that are playing. The Bengals are on bye last week, and so they played the Panthers 2 weeks ago, and the Falcons played the Panthers last week. And so I'm picking against both of those teams in this one, Lewis. I think the Carolina curse is real, and so I like the Steelers at home, 23-20. Carolina curse lives on.
Well, it's too bad Carolina can't beat that team when they're playing them. So I don't feel any remorse, Carolina. Your curse is stupid because the Falcons and the Bengals are going to win this week, and you picked against them both. So I feel even better now. But let's move on now to our prime time game of the week, our Sunday night football matchup. We have the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. Kansas City minus 5.5 in this one, Laraib. And you brought up before we started the potential return of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen into the offense. What does that change for this Chargers offense, Laraib?
Well, it's everything for Justin Herbert, Lewis. Playing with guys like Carter and Joshua Palmer out there, it's going to be great to see him with it, like true number 1 and number 2 receivers out there. When both of these guys are out there, Justin Herbert is on a different level. You throw Austin Eckler into the mix. This is going to be an outstanding game, Lewis, on Sunday Night Football. And, this game is really what's going to decide the decision, decide the division. The Chiefs at 7-2 and the Chargers at 5-4. I think if the Chiefs win this one, they can call it a wrap on the AFC West. And so this is going to be a really big game. The Chargers at home, might as well be a home game for the Chiefs. And so I like the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, he's been on MVP tear. And I like him to continue that in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I just think because of the injuries to this Chargers defensive front, they were just so battered against, that 49ers team last week. But they held up a decent bit against that 49ers attack, especially when it mattered most. But against, Patrick Mahomes, the leading offense in the entire NFL, it's in Los Angeles, but it'll be 60% Chargers or Chiefs fans. And that's me being nice in this ball game. I just think, the Chiefs are on a mission this season. The Chargers, they just lack the talent defensively to keep up. I think, those receivers do make a huge difference because, Justin Herbert gets to a lot of these third downs where he just feels like he has to dump it off to Austin Eckler and not really make a play. But when you have Mike Williams and you have Keenan Allen, guys you can trust, you feel a lot more confident in those situations and you convert a lot of those situations. So it'll be a high-scoring game. But I do like the Chiefs in this one. I just trust them a lot more at this point, especially given the injuries to the Chargers defense. So I'm going to take a really fun, exciting game. I'm going to go 34-28. Chiefs win it in the end.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I like the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, his MVP odds just keep on going up and up and up. And I think that continues in this one. I like the Chiefs 33-30, Lewis. Well, that will wrap up our slate of games for Sunday. But let's go to Mexico City on a Monday night.
Mexico.
We have the San Francisco 49ers playing the Arizona Cardinals. San Francisco -8, Lewis. And, you have this Cardinals team, a question at quarterback. Are you going to get a banged up Kyler Murray out there? Or is it going to be Colt McCoy again? Whichever two they throw out there, I just like the 49ers in this one. The defense has been balling out. A lot of guys coming back and getting healthy. I think, they can win this game pretty easily despite the quarterback, issues for the Cardinals.
Yeah, there are just too many questions on the offensive front for the Cardinals right now. Who's playing quarterback? Marquise Brown potentially coming back, but then Zach Ertz, has a horrible injury, and he's been playing very well for them. So there's a lot of moving, shifting parts in this offense for the Cardinals. It seems like they can never just have their full slate of guys ready and on the field. Meanwhile, the 49ers, they're getting all their guys back, and they're looking really solid. The only concern for me for the 49ers is in a lot of these situations, they get too cute, they get too creative, and they just they're not efficient enough. They just need more of those Debo 40-yard plays. They do these very creative, just cyclical 8-yard run, 13-yard reverse, just nickel and dime you down the field like a surgeon. But a lot of times you just need a George Kittle 25 yards over the middle. You need Elijah Mitchell 30-yard run, break it open. They just don't have that many explosive plays. And in the red zone, it seems like they get way too cute as well, and they can't convert, so they have to settle for field goals. But I think this game against the Cardinals defense, they get touchdowns instead of field goals, make Mexico City proud, and the 49ers win this ball game, Laraib.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, Lewis. The 49ers offense, especially in the red zone, they've struggled to put up points all season long, no matter who they're playing up against. The defense is always going to be there to, hold up their end. But for this offense, like you mentioned, it's just going to be, Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius with a rushing attack and all the stuff he can design. But sometimes you have to go out there and just play football. Hey, run this out route, I'm going to throw it to you. Let's get the touchdown. And so we'll see how they can put up in this one, especially with all the laser pointers out there in Mexico City. Hopefully the lights aren't too bright for Jimmy Garoppolo. And so I like the 49ers 26-20 in Mexico.
Well, Laraib, you think about it, and this is why they wanted to move on to Trey Lance for these red zone situations when you have just a big, powerful running quarterback who can get it on his own, and you have so many more options. But when you're kind of limited with Jimmy Garoppolo, yes, you have all these cool toys and weapons, but when it gets down to those crunch moments and you have to fit it in, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is that great in those situations. So you think that maybe if Trey Lance has been healthy, they might be rolling right now. So it's hard to say, though, because Jimmy Garoppolo, he just wins. And I think he's going to win this game. So I'm going to take the 49ers 28 to Cardinals 20. It never feels close. But, Mexico City, that's fun. I hope there never is a team there because, oh, man, what NFL free agent wants to play there? You didn't hear that, Mexico. You didn't hear that. But, Laraib, that'll do it for the games of the week. Let's now get into our upsets, locks, and best bets of the week, Laraib. You go ahead and start it with your upset of the week.
Right, Lewis. I'm picking the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like I mentioned, the Carolina curse lives on with this one after the Bengals coming off a bye playing the Panthers from 2 weeks ago. And then with the return of TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think they just get after Joe Burrow all game long, especially with no Jamar Chase. I like the Steelers at home.
Yeah, and my upset is the Rams traveling to my city in New Orleans. Saints are only favored by 3.5 now. I just updated, maybe because Matthew Stafford is playing. I just think that the Rams have key advantages in this game that they can take care of. Cooper Kupp or not, they find a way to win. And Sean McVay finds a way to stick around in this gettable NFC. Rams get the upset of the week.
All right, Lewis. And for my lock of the week, it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs at only -5.5. On the road playing the Chargers. I really like the Chiefs, Lewis. We know how they dominate their division. And even with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams coming back, I think Patrick Mahomes can get it done.
I just noticed that they were 5.5-point favorites. Good job, Laraib. But my lock of the week is the team that's been so dominant over one opponent for the last 7 years. That is the New England Patriots over the New York Jets. It's just every time they play, they win, especially coming off a bye. Who do I trust more off a bye? Bill Belichick or Robert Saleh? I like Robert Saleh, but he's not Bill Belichick. I think they right the ship, they get things going to make for a very exciting AFC playoff picture. Give me the Patriots as my lock of the week. And moving on to best bets of the week, Laraib, you started off. Who do you have as your best bet?
My best bet of the week, Lewis, is going to be the Vikings at +1.5. I know you really like the Cowboys in this one, but I will say, the Vikings have won 7 games this year, all by 1 score. And so if you think this is going to be a really close game, which we both agree, +1.5, maybe you want to flex that to, maybe +3, 3.5, or maybe, if you're trying to play it really safe, get it a +7. That's a really good value on that, or really good, chance to hit on that. And so I like the Vikings plus whatever you're feeling.
My best bet of the week, Laraib, I'm going to go ahead and move over to this. I was thinking about it. I originally was thinking maybe this Falcons game I wanted to make my best bet of the week, but no, I'm switching over.
Carolina curse has got you scared, huh?
I'm doubling down. You're going to parlay the Falcons and the Bengals for whatever the odds are. And we're going to break the Carolina curse together. That's my best bet of the week because it's stupid and it makes no sense, especially off a bye. But that'll do it for this week's picks and previews, Laraib. It'll be a very exciting week. As always, all of our socials are in the links below. So if you want to check us out on Spotify and YouTube, you can get all of our content. We had some technical difficulties last week. We hope this week sounded and just was a lot better, a lot cleaner. Laraib with the new setup over here. So we're gonna be a lot new, awesome changes coming to the podcast soon. Laraib, anything else you want to say before we head out?
No, I think that's going to be the First and Goal podcast. Signing off.
Peace.